Hi, and welcome to Be Present with Coke. I'm Jackie Nagany Hook, and this is a video series where we talk about the importance of being present in life, with dying, with death, and with grief. And I'm very excited to have Holly Ray here with me today. Holly has been a friend for a long time and someone with whom I've worked on various projects. And I'm always excited to spend time with her because she has a real heart for this work. When we're talking about the topics of being present with life, dying, death, and grief, Holly lives that every day. And so we'll spend some time talking about that with our theme today, which is after death. So welcome, Holly. Do you want to take a couple minutes and tell us a little bit about what it is you do?
Sure. I'm Holly Ray, and I am a licensed practical nurse, and I'm also a personal care administrator. I have my license to operate a personal care home. So I spent many years working as a hospice nurse, became certified and trained in an end-of-life doula, and recently have really branched out providing private care services to our seniors, almost like a project manager for their healthcare needs and their end-of-life support, whatever that may mean to them.
Well, thank you. So you've spent a lot of time in your career with people as they get close to death and then at death and after death. With the work that you do and you've done, what comes to mind with you when we think of our theme, after death?
Well, the after death is an important topic and something that we need to talk about. And that's one thing that no one has ever taught us how to act or what to say or do when somebody's dying or has died. You know, we've not been taught about grief and what it feels like. And we don't know the hurt that grief creates, and you don't know how to live. So having this topic is definitely important. I often view grief, and personally I've experienced grief. So my grief is like a wound, and grief, I believe, is like that. It's a wound, and it's painful at first, and it's open, and over time it can heal. And sometimes it heals, on its own. Sometimes it might need some stitches. It might even need surgery to heal. But the wound heals from the inside out, and the pain can get less as the scar forms. And grief is often like that. There's a grief scar. You're never going to be the same. And it's similar to the wound, that it takes time to heal. And I think we all have to be kind to ourselves and know that sometimes you can't heal grief on your own, and it's okay to talk to somebody about grief, whether it's a religious counselor, a spiritual director, a therapist, and don't be afraid to get help on this topic after death. Because once again, I think people think that, oh, somebody has died and it's after death and we should get on with our life. Because oftentimes that happens when, think about it, with work-wise, you get 3 days off for bereavement. So I think, and we think that, oh, well, we have 3 days off to grieve, so then I should get back to it because I'm able to get to work. And that's not the case.
Yeah. I like your use of the word wound. I think that describes it well. And I recently read about some wounds being sacred wounds, how they change us, right? And ways maybe we didn't want to be changed, but then maybe afterwards we find some meaning in those changes. How has your work around death and after death changed you? What are some of the ways that it's affected you to do this kind of work?
Well, I personally experienced different types of death and grief and loss. some with family members tragically. I dealt with a suicide. I've dealt with grandparents. And I will say, I do see a therapist, and that's how the whole wound helped me verbalize it. And I've realized that I have grief, and it stays with me. It's not going to leave, and I can't force it to leave. And so I'm learning how to cope and deal with the grief. I often have used the terminology too with ocean waves, that grief is like the ocean waves, and you're not exactly sure what wave's going to come in or when it's going to come in. It could be a nice calm wave with good memories and laughter. It could be a little more intense. It could be like the waves at the beginning of a hurricane when they're thrashing about and it's a bad day and there's a lot of triggers, and knowing what to do with those triggers. And when you're having a bad day, and it's okay to have a bad day, but know that you're not always going to be in that state. It's like the ocean. So the hurricane's going to go away. The waves are going to calm down again. And there's going to be blue skies, and there's going to be joy. There's going to be happiness, and there's going to be good memories. And to focus, remembering that, focus on that, you know, the waves that are come crashing in are just in the moment and what to do in that moment. So once again, I see so many people, and me personally, but I see so many people that don't deal with that grief. They feel like they're weak. They're not strong enough. They should be moving on. And these conversations need to keep happening. It's not a once and done conversation. So these talks after death, you know, it needs to continue to happen. And I often see people too, we often focus on anniversaries, like the wedding anniversaries, Christmas time, the holiday season. But I've seen a lot of people, what I call the anniversaries of the heart, that are just special days between the person that died and the person that's still here. And it might be their first date or the first time they ate ice cream together. And that's a memory in their heart that the outside people, friends and families, really don't acknowledge. But when it's that day, it can be hard for them. And you, as the person grieving, making note of those days and being aware that it might be a challenging day, and to be kind to yourself and to work up a plan to get through that day.
Right, right. And I'm going to invite you to share a story when we talk about sacred wounds and this kind of work and dealing with grief and how you've learned to live with it. That has to do with dusting in your house, because I think that's a beautiful story that describes finding meaning, right, from doing this kind of work.
Yes. So those that know me know early on that I'm a very organized person. I like order in my house. And becoming a nurse was nothing in my plan. After my youngest son went to school, I prayed for my purpose, and nursing came. And through nursing and through this end of life care that we provide and being with people, I've lessened the strictness in my house, so to speak. So like I used to have everything cleaned and dusted and done right, even though I had children in my house. So there's this bookshelf. And so I stopped dusting the bookshelf, and we use it to write love notes on it. So it's a couple shelves, and throughout the day or the week or whatever enough dust accumulates, we write a note. It could be as simple as like a smiley face, I love you, a heart. And over time, that note gets more dust on it, so it goes away. And it's covered by more dust, so we can rewrite notes. And we call it like our love notes. And it's something that my children have really loved to do. And it's something that just came out organically. I was just like, you know what? We're not going to dust this, because the one day my son wrote a note on it. And then that's what triggered it. I'm like, you know what? He really made a good point. It's not about the dust. It's not about the dirt. It's about the time that we spend together, because we don't know how much time we're going to have together, and I'm not going to spend the time worried about some dust. So we go out and we make some memories.
That's a lot about being present. Thank you for sharing that story, right? I mean, being present
Yes.
with your family, with your kids, and making the most of it in whatever way you can. Being present is what this whole series is about, because we believe it's so important. Can you share about a time when you were very present in your life?
So there's several that come to mind, but one of the most is when I was called by a family. Their mom was dying, and they wanted to know if I could come and be there. And I went into the room, and I sat with them, and I listened to their stories, and there was laughter, there was tears, and they were telling lots of stories. And I held hands, I provided tissues, and once again, I listened, and I really felt present. I was leaning in, I was engaged, making eye contact. And after their mom had died, they thanked me for being there and all of the support I did, and they couldn't have done it without me. And I realized also during my time in that room, I didn't say one complete sentence. I may have said 10 words, if that. And I listened, I was acknowledging them, nodding my head. So I realized that people think that you have to talk to be present, and you have to listen. And listening is part of being present. And so like the body language and the smiling. So what I got out of that was like less is more. You don't have to talk. Stop, put everything aside. Don't be distracted by cell phones. Listen to the stories, because I learned so much about this family, and I was honored and privileged that they allowed me to be there, because it was vulnerable. They told stories, and like I said, I learned a lot, and some of their traditions I was able to bring into my family. So being present, you can learn so much about yourself, about them, and holding space for them was what it was about. And once again, that was probably the most honor and privilege I had felt, being with somebody who was dying and being called in by the family.
Wow, thank you. That's powerful. And it definitely speaks to just simply being present, what a difference it can make and an impact it can have. So thank you for sharing with us today. Before we close, I just want to let everyone know that a couple upcoming events. We have our Healing Through the Holidays starting on Monday, November 16th, and also a Heart Grief and Loss Support Program for individuals and couples who've experienced pregnancy and early infant loss. That will start on November 19th. And more information can be found on the Cook website. So I will close us with a quote from Elizabeth Kubler-Ross, and I think it speaks about Holly. It talks about beautiful people. The most beautiful people we have known are those who have known defeat, known suffering, known struggle, known loss, and have found their way out of the depths. These persons have an appreciation, a sensitivity, and an understanding of life that fills them with compassion, gentleness, and a deep, loving concern. Beautiful people do not just happen. So thank you, Holly, for being with us today. And I welcome everyone back to our next episode next month. Bye-bye.
Thank you.